A Birthday Party from Hell and the most famous manhunt in history. Critics thought these movies were silver screen gold. Did you? As the only film on this list with a perfect Metascore of 100, Boyhood has a lot of hype to live up to. Directed and written by Richard Linklater, Boyhood was filmed over the course of an outstanding 12 years. Linklater began with just an initial outline and wrote each section of the characters' lives along the way. The result is an authentic, visceral depiction of growing up. The film follows Mason Evans Jr., who at the beginning of the film is just 6 years old. The plot follows Mason through the next dozen years of his life as he navigates family, romance, and everything else that comes with adolescence. Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette co-star as Mason's divorced parents, Mason Sr. and Olivia. The film received a ton of accolades, including 6 Academy Award nominations and a Best Supporting Actress win for Arquette. Boyhood received a massive amount of praise from critics for the beauty and remarkable nature of the movie.
You're kind of weird, you know that?
Yeah? Is that a compliment?
I don't know.
Barry Jenkins' Moonlight holds a 96 score on Metacritic. It is a film so good that it's hard to put into words a description of its brilliance. Not that that stopped critics from trying and succeeding to explain just how mesmerizing the film is, with various publications praising its grand ambition and powerful message. The story follows a young gay black man named Chiron, growing up in Miami through 3 distinct periods of his life. It begins with Chiron as a kid, who is confused by his desires and sexuality. It moves on to his teenage years as he begins to come into himself more and even has his first sexual experience. It concludes with Chiron as a young adult as he still struggles deeply with accepting who he is. Each actor takes on the role of Chiron in their own ways, with their own power, while at the same time seamlessly sharing the same character. Of course, Mahershala Ali's Oscar-winning turn as the drug dealer Juan, who becomes a mentor and father figure to Chiron, is simply an unforgettable performance.
You gotta know right now. Alright?
Set in 1970s Mexico City, Alfonso Cuarón's Roma follows a young woman named Cleo who works as a live-in maid for the middle-class household of a couple named Sofia and Antonio, their 4 children, and Sofia's mother. When Cleo becomes pregnant, her boyfriend refuses to acknowledge the baby. At the same time, Antonio suddenly runs away with his young mistress. As a result, Cleo finds herself bonding more with Sofia and the rest of the family. Roma holds a Metacritic score of 96, with many critics deeming it an intimate portrait and a grandiose piece of filmmaking. The word masterpiece was thrown around by more than one outlet. Upon watching Roma, it's clear to see why. Written and directed by Kenneth Lonergan, Manchester by the Sea tells the story of Lee Chandler, who, after the death of his brother Joe, learns that he has been made the sole guardian of his nephew Patrick. Upon returning to Manchester by the Sea, the fishing village where he's from, to take care of Patrick, Lee is forced to face his traumatic past and his estranged ex-wife, Randy. The film was nominated for a huge string of awards, including 6 Academy Award nods in almost all the major categories. Of the 6, Casey Affleck won for Best Actor and Lonergan won for Best Original Screenplay. Both wins likely align with the experience the viewer has in watching the film. Lee's world is so intricately constructed, and Affleck takes on the role with keen skill. These achievements are reflected in its 96 score on Metacritic. Based on the memoir 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup, this film adaptation and Best Picture winner is a striking portrait of a real man's horrific reality back in the years before the Civil War. Written for the screen by John Ridley and directed by Steve McQueen, 12 Years a Slave tells the story of a free black man named Solomon living in upstate New York, where slavery is abolished. But when Solomon is suddenly kidnapped, he gets sold back into slavery, facing the cruelty of not only his circumstances, but of a brutal master named Edwin. After 12 years of this life, Solomon finally has the opportunity to escape. Much of the film's praise went directly to McQueen, whose firm grasp on the subject and presentation of this difficult storyline is thoughtful and memorable enough for a 96 score on Metacritic. Additionally, the cast members do phenomenal work, making the deep authenticity of the film even more nuanced and compelling. Chiwetel Ejiofor received an Oscar nomination for his portrayal of Solomon, while Lupita Nyong'o won the Best Supporting Actress for her role as Patsy.
Cheers. Cheers.
Carrying a film essentially on your own is no small feat for an actor, but with Gravity, lead actor Sandra Bullock proves herself more than capable. Directed and co-written by Alfonso Cuarón, Gravity centers on medical engineer Dr. Ryan Stone as she begins her first in-space shuttle mission. Aided by veteran astronaut Matt Kowalski, their mission soon goes disastrously wrong, putting them both in imminent danger. With their shuttle destroyed, the two quickly realize they're stranded in the middle of space, and Ryan is soon left on her own. Moviegoers who experienced Gravity were likely not surprised when the film won 7 of the 10 Academy Awards it was nominated for. It's the kind of visually ambitious film that is bound to succeed in all of the technical aspects, but the real impact of Gravity is more than just a visual and auditory feat, as evidenced by its Metacritic score of 96. It's clear to see what Cuarón's intention for Gravity was: to fully immerse the viewer in the magical, if also terrifying world of deep space right alongside Bullock.
Either way, whichever way. No harm, no foul.
Parasite became the first non-English language film to ever win the Academy Award for Best Picture. However, even that groundbreaking feat doesn't convey exactly how much of a triumph this film from director Bong Joon-ho really is. In what has been called a career best for Joon-ho, Parasite will pull you in and surprise you at every turn, even when you're sure you have a grasp on what's happening. This isn't even to mention the ultra-sharp commentary, themes, and symbolism constantly at play that landed this a 96 score on Metacritic. Parasite follows the struggling Kim family, who, living in a semi-basement apartment, fold pizza boxes for extra income to stay afloat. When the Kim's son gets a job tutoring the daughter of the wealthy Park family, the Kims scheme to all get jobs in the Park's affluent home. In a compelling look into class, inequality, greed, and power, the Kims' newly found comfort also becomes threatened. While Parasite is a film that's difficult to fully sum up, many critics have tried to analyze its different messages. It has been referred to as uncomfortable and uneasy to watch, but it ultimately presents a story that has something important to say and holds true to many people. Written and directed by French filmmaker Céline Sciamma, Portrait of a Lady on Fire offers a personal look into the intimacy between two lovers in a visually stunning slow burn that earned a 95 score on Metacritic. Set on an island off the coast of France in 1770, the story follows a young painter who is commissioned to paint the wedding portrait of a rebellious soon-to-be bride. In the midst of this assignment, they fall passionately in love. A beautiful love story deserves beautiful visual imagery, which is exactly what director Sciamma and cinematographer Claire Mattone deliver. The lead actors give excellent performances, both individually and especially together. Their chemistry leaps off the screen and keeps you rooting for them even when you sense that they only have a tragic ending ahead of them. Based on the novel The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith, Carol was adapted by Phyllis Nodge for the screen and directed by Todd Haynes. Set in 1950s Manhattan, Carol follows the romantic relationship between a middle-aged woman in the midst of a messy divorce and a young aspiring photographer. Both Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara excel in depicting two characters whose outer lives have to differ from their inner feelings. Getting to see their lives outside of each other only make their connection more palpable once they do come together. The film received a 94 score on Metacritic, with reviewers complimenting the chemistry of the actors and the film's passionate love story.
And I thought perhaps you might like to come with me.
Mark Zuckerberg is one of the most famous entrepreneurs out there today, and the 95 scoring The Social Network offers a peek behind the curtain of the man behind the news headlines. Written by Aaron Sorkin and directed by David Fincher, The Social Network begins when Zuckerberg was still a student at Harvard. From there, we see the creation of Facebook from its roots and how it led to Zuckerberg landing on the receiving end of 2 major lawsuits in relation to his growing social media site. As one of the oldest films on this list, we can say that The Social Network has aged well since its release. Watching it now, the observations seem more keen, the writing just as sharp, and the depiction of Zuckerberg all the more telling.
I know. I'm totally psyched about this too.
The only documentary on this list with a Metacritic tally of 95, I Am Not Your Negro, is a searing social critique based on the unfinished manuscript Remember This House by James Baldwin. It is narrated by Samuel L. Jackson and adapted for the screen by director Raoul Peck. Importantly, the film explores racism in America through the lens of the deaths of 3 of Baldwin's close friends, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. In terms of documentaries, this one hits all the marks of what a great one should be. Beyond being a standout of its genre, it also integrates the work of a literary great in Baldwin. Ever timely and ever fascinating, it's a shining example of the power of the documentary. The attack on 9/11 is undoubtedly one of the defining moments of recent history. It also led to the takedown of Osama bin Laden, the leader of terrorist network Al-Qaeda, after a decade-long search. The hunt and his death are depicted in Zero Dark 30, which was written by Mark Boal and directed by Catherine Bigelow. The film centers on fictional CIA intelligence analyst Maya Harris, who is in the process of finding bin Laden. Critics up and down the board agree that as a thriller, it's a near-perfect example of the genre. It showed in its score as well, with Zero Dark 30 achieving an impressive Metacritic score of 95. Beyond the compliments and glowing praise, the film is also immersive and memorable, so it's no wonder it earned its place on this list.
If you're right, the whole world's gonna win in on this.
A Separation is a beautiful piece of cinema from Iran. Written and directed by Asghar Farhadi, the film is about an estranged couple, Nader and Simin, who are at odds with each other in regards to their marriage. Nader is refusing a separation, resulting in Simin suing Nader for a divorce with the intention of pursuing a better life for their daughter abroad. Further complicating things, Nader finds himself in another court battle when an abusive act against his father's pregnant caregiver, Razia, ends in a miscarriage and Razia and her husband sue. The power of A Separation lies in the compellingly complicated relationships of these two marriages and the ways in which they intersect. While it's a character study at its core, smart filmmaking brings a depth to the film that makes it feel like much more. Moreover, the writing articulates its themes and messages flawlessly, delivered through the actions of these nuanced characters. With a Metacritic score of 95, it has the one key characteristic that arguably each of the films on this list has: staying power.